Story 1. My school went on lockdown, but it wasn't anything you'd expect. I was 17 years old and in my junior year when this happened. It was a regular and peaceful day at school. Nothing weird was going on, just a bit of predictions now and then. I was walking to third period with my friend, 17-year-old male. We made it to class and our teacher, Ms. Garcia, looked very uneasy, like something bad was about to happen. She usually was always happy, but today was different. About 20 minutes after class started, a voice on the AP intercom emerged. It was the lady at the front desk. LVL.3 lockdown. I repeat, LVL.3 lockdown. Everyone in class knew what a LVL.3 lockdown was. At our school there was 3 levels of lockdown. LVL.1, medical emergency. LVL.2, threat/danger around school. LVL.3, life-threatening danger inside school. Ms. Garcia locked the doors, dimmed the lights all the way down, and gestured us to the back of the classroom. 30 minutes has passed since we've been in lockdown. Students were muttering, telling each other about the rumor that was circulating. Everyone stopped talking when we heard banging on the doors of classroom near us. My friend swore he'd heard someone say something. He was right. The thing or person was screaming someone's name. It wasn't until they came closer when everyone heard the man again. Kyle. Kyle. Where are you? I won't give up till I find you and kill you. Everyone looked at me. I pulled out my phone and started texting my mom, with tears faintly visible. Little preview of what I texted my mom. Kyle, are you in work right now? Mom, no sweetie, what's up? It was clear my mom wasn't aware of the lockdown. Kyle, there's a lockdown at school. A man is screaming my name. And I am on the verge of tears. Mom, what the hell are you talking about? Kyle, some strange man is screaming my name. Mom, that's not true. Come on, Kyle. Stop playing with me. Kyle sends a screenshot. Mom. Sweetie. That's your dad. Kyle, what do you mean? Dad's dead. Mom, no, he's in jail. I was gonna tell you tomorrow since it's your birthday then. Kyle, well, what is he in jail for? Mom, for violating his restraining order. He tried to kill you, so I divorced him and filed a restraining order. He broke it, so he's in jail till you're 30. Kyle. Thanks, Mom. Mom, no problem, sweetheart. About an hour later, we were still on lockdown. The students looked at me. My friend asked if I got any info about the man. I told them the man was my father and he was in jail for violating his restraining order against me and my mom. Everyone stared at me with pure shock. Everyone started feeling bad for me. A voice on the AP intercom emerged again. Everyone was free to go. I ran out of school and went to see the captured father figure of mine. I sucked my tongue out at him and left with Mom. I have PTSD from this incident. But I'm happy that I got it over with. No one should have to experience this kind of stuff, and I hope no one does. Story 2. Lockdown. I was 15 when this happened. I was in high school and I went to class and sat down where my teacher said, "Wow, Dan, I love your hair. I used to have black hair, but I dyed it blonde, thanks Mr. Smith." During class time I asked the teacher if I could use the restroom. He said yes, and I saw my friend Tiffany and I said hi, and we both started walking to the restroom, but then all of a sudden an announcement came over the intercom. It was the principal. His voice was so shaky as he announced that the school had been placed on lockdown. At first me and Tiffany thought that this was a joke, but then all the lights turned off. We got scared and hid in the stalls in the bathroom. We heard someone enter the bathroom humming creepily, almost exactly like the humming in the movie Truth or Dare, and then the humming stopped and we heard the person say, "I know you're in here, come on out," and then, before I could move, the man opened my stall because I had forgot to lock it, and then he pinned me to the ground and sliced my arm, my stomach, and my leg, and I screamed in pain. But then I saw Tiffany pull out her pepper spray and she pushed him away from me and said, "Choke on this, bitch," and she sprayed the man in the face. He screamed in pain and fell to the floor rubbing his eyes, and then I had to hold on to Tiffany because I was injured, and we made it outside and saw the police. They arrested the man and I was rolled into an ambulance, and Tiffany came along and so did my teacher. When we got to the hospital, my parents came and hugged me. After a few days passed, I recovered from my wounds, but then I heard people talking about my best friend Adam. It turns out that the man broke into his class and shot everyone in the class. I bursted into tears and went to his funeral. I hugged my girlfriend while crying. She hugged me back, and since then nothing else happened at my school. Story 3. Horrifying lockdown story. The year was 2018. Although I can't remember the exact date this happened, I do remember it was around a month after the Parkland shootings. I'm 17 and still remember this day like it was yesterday. I was in the 7th grade at the time and was transitioning to my next class, which was language arts. I sat down in my seat, being one of the first people in class since I didn't stop by to talk to any of my friends. As soon as the rest of the students came into class, the bell rung and class began. My teacher finished off the lesson that we had learned the day before. I remember always having this one bad kid in my class who acted like a fool all the time and wanted to be a class clown. He of course sat right next to me in class, surprisingly leaving me alone as he always found some kind of way to annoy me at 10 in the morning. Around 30 minutes into the period, the intercom turned on. I paid it no mind since they usually asked for people to come down to the office, but something about this announcement felt unpleasantly strange. My principal sounded very terrified, like she had seen a ghost. She announced a lockdown in the most horrific manner, frantically clicking buttons on the phone. Specifically 3 buttons. I knew something wasn't right, as whenever lockdown drills are announced, they aren't as frantic as my principal was now. She quickly hung up the phone, leaving everyone confused as of why she was so terrified. My teacher told us to go to the corner while she made sure the classroom door was locked and put down the blinds on the door. The class clown of course found a way to be annoying, making loud noises and jokes. Usually during lockdowns, I would just ignore him. But this lockdown felt off. I would begin to try my hardest and make him be quiet, but he just wouldn't shut up. I tried to calm my overthinking, telling myself that everything was fine and that I'm just being dramatic. Then my heart dropped. My class just so happened to be in the front of the building at the time this was happening. I saw around 7 cop cars pull into the front of the building where the main entrance was with their guns drawn. My hands began to shake and I felt like I wasn't awake. I felt like time started to slow down. Everything started to slow down. My best friend of 7 years at the time was at lunch during the lockdown. I started getting very paranoid, wondering if she was okay and safe. I felt like I was losing my mind and trapped in some kind of lucid dream, except it was real. I started to wondering if this was actually happening. Nothing felt real. The kid who continued to annoy the class made me more and more angry because he wouldn't just stay quiet for the sake of our lives. He was doing nothing but putting our lives in danger, and it was really frustrating. The girl next to me whispered in my ear, "It's okay. If anything happens to us, my mom told me to carry this knife with me for my safety." Remembering this 5 years later really hurts. The fact that a 12-year-old has to say that is really heartbreaking. I opened Snapchat, which was popular at the time, and looked at everyone's stories to get a confirmation on what was happening. My eyes widened at the text that popped up on my screen. "There's a school shooter in the building." At this point, I start to text my family about what was happening, telling them that I wanted to go home and that I was scared. My mom immediately blew my phone up with messages telling me to keep texting her so that she knew I was okay. My older sister was in the high school, which was right across the street from our school, so she was also in lockdown texting my mom. About an hour later, the lockdown was finally lifted. It was my lunch period, but since the lockdown took up half of the period, we only had 15 minutes to eat. Me and my friends decided to go to the bathroom to see if we can find out what happened. Since the teachers only let 2 girls at a time in, I stayed outside the bathroom waiting for my turn. But then something caught my eye. I saw a police officer walking down the hallway with a book bag in his hand and a student walking by his side. The student didn't look so happy to be with the officer. He didn't look at any of the students in the hallway. He just stared at the floor. After me and my friends went to the bathroom, we walked back into the lunchroom where I told them what I had saw in the hallway. It was until school ended and I had met up with my best friend in the bus where she told me what happened during her lunch period. There was this kid who was sitting at his table with his friends. I'm guessing his friends made some kind of joke that offended him. He told his friends that he had a gun in his book bag and that he will use it. Thank God for his friend, as he had told a teacher about what his friend had told him, leading us into a lockdown. I was wondering who the kid was. Turns out, the kid didn't have a gun in his book bag and was just trying to scare his friends. I had later found out what he had looked like. It was the kid walking down the hallway with the officer. Story 4. I feel breathing. I feel breathing. It was just a normal day at school. I was going to the bathroom because 5th period was almost over when an announcement came on. Students and faculty, we are going into lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Stressed and scared, I ran. I was already seeing doors being slamming. I didn't want to be caught by whoever it could be in the hallways. I was going to go to the bathroom stall, but it had a crazy locking system and you could just slide under. So I kept running until I saw the janitor's closet. For some reason the ceiling was very tall. I went in and locked the door. As I breathed heavily, all I could hear was "get on the ground," until a couple of stray bullets went clean through the door. I used the holes to look out into the hallway. I could just barely see the thing, but it wasn't human. It was a huge thing, almost touching the ceiling, and all I could hear was the bullets being bounced off of its body. I look at it and for a couple of seconds and it just looks at me with a blank stare. Suddenly it disappeared and all of the army guards and cops are in pure shock, and I hear, "Oh no, who is it looking at?" Story 5. This took place back when I was in high school. I think I was a freshman if I recall. My first year in high school was starting off great for me. I was getting my work done and making new friends. Same old, same old. This probably took place somewhere in November, and I know for a fact that I was in health class. I asked the teacher if I could go to the bathroom. He said yes, and I made my way out the door to the girls' bathroom. This may be too much information, but I was in the middle of doing my business on the toilet when the loudspeaker came on. I heard the principal take a deep breath as she said something along the lines of, "Please excuse the interruption. At this time we would like to have all of the students stay in their classroom that they are currently in. Teachers, do not let the kids leave to go to the bathroom/lockers or anywhere else. If you hear the bell ring, do not switch classes. Thank you for your cooperation." I remember having that really heavy feeling in my chest, as if my heart dropped out of my body. At the time, I didn't know how serious the situation was, but I was guessing it was pretty bad. No one else was in the bathroom with me. I didn't know whether to stay in the bathroom or go back to the classroom. There were no classrooms near the bathroom. I would have to walk down 2 flights of stairs to get to the nearest one, and I was too scared to leave the bathroom. I just stayed in the stall for what seemed like an hour before I heard someone walking down the hallway. A huge weight was lifted off my chest, thinking that it was probably the principal walking down the hallway, letting the classes know that it was okay to leave the classroom. This seemed like a reasonable idea in my head, but I realized that the footsteps were moving fast, as if someone was speed walking down the hallway. It was probably a kid, I thought. I bet we are allowed to leave the classrooms now. I unlocked the door to the stall and made my way to the sink, washing my hands, when I noticed the person stopped speed walking. They were no longer moving. The faucet was still running, and I realized how loud the faucet was compared to the hallway outside. Was it really safe to go outside? I remember the exact moment that a thought shot through my head, a terrible thought that sadly was the most plausible reason as to why everything was so quiet, why there was a single person sprinting down the hallway and almost immediately stopped at the shooting water coming out of the faucet. We were in lockdown and the person in the hallway was the intruder. My heart skipped a beat, my body ran cold, and I felt like I was gonna throw up. I twisted the knob to turn off the faucet so aggressively, I probably could have broke it off the sink. I found myself shaking and biting my nails as I heard the footsteps of someone walking down the halls, slowly getting closer to the door. I knew what I was gonna do. I was ready. I'm one of those people who think of scenarios and plan on what they will do when they're in a situation like this. I would use the element of surprise. I stood right in front of the door confidently, trying not to shake. I waited until the person finally got to the door, stopping their feet right in front. I flinched when I saw the door shake a little bit. I realized that they were probably pressing their ear against the door, trying to listen for any sudden movements. This was the perfect moment. I did not hesitate one bit. I pushed the door open as hard as I could, feeling relieved once I felt the door smack the person in the face, slamming them down to the ground. I heard them half yelling, half groaning in pain as I made a run for it, down the flight of stairs, tripping and missing about 5 stairs before getting back up and running again. I could probably thank the adrenaline for helping me run faster than I could if I was in gym class. I finally made it down the stairs, with bruises and all, when I heard loud footsteps trampling down the stairs after me. I could feel the absolute pain in my eyes as they practically popped out of their sockets. Shit, a chase scene. I ran down the sharp turns of the hallways, definitely losing the guy, as I finally came to my classroom. The first thing I noticed through the window of the door is that there were no lights on in there, other than the light from outside that was seeping in from behind the closed blinds in the window. As I reached the door, I pounded on the door with my fists balled up, screaming, "Please let me in. Please." I heard a girl scream coming from the corner of the classroom. They weren't getting up to help me, they were still hiding. Oh no, they think I'm the intruder. My voice was so shaken up and raspy that it was definitely unidentifiable, so they think I'm the guy trying to break in the classroom. I found myself letting out a small sob as I gave up and fell to the floor. I tried calming myself, but in the moment, it was just so hard. I looked around the hall as I saw a closet, not a janitor's closet, it was teacher's closet, where they store projects and other class stuff too big to stay in the classroom all the time. I ran up to it and jiggled the knob. My heart sank. It was locked, or so I thought. Thankfully, I tried opening it again and found that it was just jammed a bit, but I was able to successfully open it. I shut myself inside and scrambled to the back of the closet, searching for weapons to use in possible combat with the intruder. The element of surprise thing probably wouldn't work this time around. They would probably expect that. So I had to fight now, or at least whack them on the head. I found a metal rod that was attached to some model of the earth and grasped it tightly in my hands. I finally heard someone walking down the hallway, and I could almost feel the fear of my classmates as I heard the intruder jiggling the doorknob and pounding on the door to my health class. Nobody screamed that time. What a relief. That probably would have provoked the intruder even more if that happened. They stopped making noise and I knew the closet door was next, my door. While they were slowly walking towards the door, I got ready to fight, almost getting into the position of a baseball player up at bat, ready to swing. They finally stopped at the door and started to jiggle at the knob. I stared at it, waiting for them to pop the door open. I knew I was ready, but apparently I wasn't. To my dismay, when they opened the door, they were ready as well and took a big swing at my head with what looked to be a broomstick. They hit me right in my temple, which hurt so fucking bad. I yelped in pain. At that point I just started aimlessly swinging the metal rod around until... squish. I stared at what I had done in horror. I had stuck the metal rod in this guy's eye. He roared in pain and started flailing his arms in the air. I let go of the metal rod, dropping it to the tiled floor. I found myself making weird screeching noises as I saw yellow oozing from his tightly shut eye. Disgusting. I punched him hard in the face, not knowing what else to do at that point. He smashed into the ground with full impact. I kicked him in the jaw for good measure and started looking around frantically, out of total hysteria. I spotted a door, not the door I had entered in through, this was a different one. I read something that was written on the door, Mr., my teacher's name, S health class. My head started to pound against my skull, as if trying to escape my body. I knew without thinking about it for another second that this closet was connected to my health class. I ran towards the doorknob and tried opening the door. Locked, of course. I felt like crying then and there. I spoke softer than I had trying to get in the classroom before. Please help me, please. It's my name. I feel like I'm about to die. Please let me in. My words trailed off. I was so weak. I rubbed my temples with my 2 fingers, trying to get rid of the pounding headache I had from the broomstick. I looked down at my hands as they had felt oddly moist. At this point I wasn't surprised, my fingers were covered in fresh blood. I looked up as I saw the door shaking a bit. Someone was unlocking the door. My heart started pounding faster, which probably isn't a healthy thing considering how fast it was going before. The door finally opened and I saw through the crack an eye, my teacher's eye. I smiled and started laughing out of relief. The teacher opened the door more to reveal a whole bunch of other eyes on me, my classmates. They stared at me in awe as I staggered into the classroom. I have no idea what happened next because the next thing I knew, I woke up on the floor of the classroom surrounded by my classmates. I'm guessing I had passed out. The sound of people frantically whispering at each other made me remember what had happened instantly. I shot up so fast, I got dizzy. I saw my classmates stop talking and just staring at me, their eyes locked on my face. It was still dark in the room, meaning we were still in lockdown. Had they not seen the body of the man on the floor in the closet? "My name, are you okay?" my teacher whisper shouted at me. I slowly said yes in a very confused tone. "Why are we still in lockdown?" I asked confused. "Are you crazy? The killer is still on the loose. Thank God he didn't hurt you any more than he did. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. I should have." I started to zone into my own thoughts as my teacher kept talking. The intruder was a killer. They didn't see him on the floor of the closet. Did I just beat up a killer? Why am I the only one who didn't know that this was a lockdown until I figured it out for myself? They didn't say it was a lockdown on the loudspeaker. I abruptly said, not even thinking about whether or not the teacher was still talking. He didn't answer. I finally looked at him and saw behind his glasses that he was tearing up. After a long pause, one of my classmates replied, saying that the teachers were texted that, so they did what they were told. I felt stupid. Why did I have to leave the classroom? I went on to a different topic, but what about the killer? Did you not see that I had beat him up in the closet? I watched as everyone's eyes grew wide. The teacher looked at me and then the closet. He looked back at me as he got up to walk over to the closet door. When he went inside, I could hear him gasp. He ran out and yelled at me, "You did that?" I mindlessly nodded. He ran to his desk where his phone was. He picked it up and started frantically typing and raising the phone to his ear. He was calling the principal, most likely. Everybody shifted their glance back to me. They started asking questions and asking how my head was. I realized that my head was wrapped up in a bandage from the first aid kit. I told them I was feeling better but really lightheaded. The questions kept piling up and I kept answering as many as I could, about how I escaped from the killer and how I had managed to beat him up. Everybody was telling me that they were sure I had died and how a lot of kids started to freak out. What seemed like an hour later, we heard sirens outside. The police were here, and so was the ambulance. The police were the ones to open the door for our class, and my teacher led them to the closet where the body of the killer was laying. I think they took him to the hospital, but I can't be sure. Next was me. I would have to go to the hospital. On the way in the ambulance truck, the investigators were questioning me as to how I was feeling and what had happened. I don't remember much after that other than being in the hospital and having a lot of interviews. It wasn't very fun for me, since I'm so traumatized by it, but I made a really big impact on my school. The principal was proud of me for handling the situation well and apologized profusely about what I went through. And yeah, that's pretty much my terrifying lockdown story.